Thanks, Prue. Minister Madden, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me here today to share my views on Melbourne, participating in the Melbourne Place Making Series. We have a very beautiful city, it's Melbourne. Not just one that's great for the benefit of the Hoddle Bridge or for the riches of the Gold Rush legacy or the cycling of the city on the harbour, on the river. The reality is there's a lot more in our past that comes to making this a great place. I think it's an excellent discussion. I'd like to congratulate VicUrban and the other sponsors for actually putting the discussion on, and I think it's a very timely one for Melbourne, at the very least, to have. What creates value in an urban development was the first question that I pondered. In my mind, in short, value equals quality. I get to that point easily, but then I get a more difficult description of what is really quality, because I think that's something that's very much intangible. It can come from many angles, and I separate the discussion and then go to something that today is considered very valuable and very appealing, and I think of the Apple products. And I think what makes that of such high quality and so appealing. And I think through style, functionality, comfort, longevity, if I extend that and move away from the iPod and get into urban development, I probably think about connections, movements, safety and activation. And I think it's about all of that and how that comes together. I guess again, in short, it's about good design and conceptual planning, and it's the very broadest at the very start. I also think of the word sustainability again in its broader context around balancing environmental, social and community and financial outcomes. And I think ultimately it all comes down to balance, and I'll come back to that. Does place create value? Well, I think that's a very easy one to say yes. And to reinterpret that from another perspective, I think in the development and finance world, we talk about the three rules of property being location, location, location. And I think that's just reinterpreting the same concept, that place does create value, and it's certainly at the core of everything I think that property development is all about. Sometimes I ask, are we patient enough? Are we patient enough to really create great places? I think that's one of the dilemmas we often face. If I think of the style of development, particularly the way residential development is constructed here in Australia, in Melbourne, developed, it's very much with a short-term view. It's very much about selling our apartments, building our apartments, and leaving it. No one truly gets left with the ownership and the legacy. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have in creating great places of great value. It seems to me that decisions that are based around longer term initiatives, around longer term outcomes, are the ones that create greater value. If I draw on a couple of examples of that, I think we're sitting in one right now. This project has some great challenges, but it's turned out it's been a very long-dated vision that's delivered immense value, and I think that value continues to grow as it goes on. So I think this is a fine example of a place creating value. If I look at a Boulder project and look at Docklands, I think Docklands is creating value. It's a harder one than this, it's much bigger, but it's creating value in those long positions. If I look at some of our own creations, and I think of QB that we developed here in Melbourne, which was essentially for a long time a vacated city block. And I think the success of that has been the long-term decisions that we made. If I look at, quite frankly, if I look at the objectives of the benefits and the weaknesses of QB, I think the strengths are all in the longer-term decisions. So how do we better realise value? I think it's about getting the balance right. There's lots of considerations that go to what makes a great place. And for mine, it's all about the balance. It's all about getting the balance right. I think there are other areas we can actually put incentives in place to get that balance right. And whether those are incentives around planning and ensuring that density is occurring in the right places, where the infrastructure is, where the transport nodes are, whether it's about promoting sustainability that we need today, and whether that's encouraged by providing incentives around accelerated depreciation or areas like that. One of the other areas is to celebrate more good design, complexes that achieve great places. I think as a culture, we could actually do better if we celebrate our successes more, and that would be something that I think that can happen better to encourage the creation of great places. Finally, I'll finish on the note of population. I think that population is a very important part of creating great places as well. The Minister talked about, some of the cheapest places, it's cheap because no one wants to go there. And I think about Melbourne before Melbourne 3000, postcode 3000 came out. And I think about how difficult Melbourne was as a place to do business and to create things and to create an environment. And I think that anyone that has a memory that goes back there, again, long-term decision making, would agree that the best thing for Melbourne is to continue to have our population growth. We need to cater that in a sustainable way to create the right good places. But the last thing we want is to have the sorts of issues that we had in the late 90s with decreasing population. Thank you very much.